Lucky for Becky, her reflexes were sharp, otherwise, a fall from this height? Even God couldn't save her. She froze, too terrified to move. But Hunter, climbing above, kept urging her to hurry up. So Becky forced herself to look straight ahead, doing her best not to glance down, and kept free climbing this abandoned 600-meter signal tower. What neither of them noticed was that the rusted tower frame was already cracking, and a few of its bolts were swaying loose in the wind. No matter how careful they were, these hidden dangers were going to catch up with them sooner or later. After 2 hours of non-stop climbing, the two finally reached a small platform, but they had no plans to stop. The very top of the tower that was the real goal of this extreme challenge. Up there was nothing to protect them, and the higher they climbed, the stronger the wind got. Just looking up made Becky's legs go weak. Trembling, she turned around and grabbed the ladder beside her. Worried it might not hold, she gave it a hard shake first. Only after confirming nothing was obviously loose did she dare step on. Just then, Hunter kindly looked back to give Becky a heads up. Her mind got the better of her, and she couldn't resist looking down. One quick glance was all it took to terrify her, but it was way too late to back out now. The two were tied together by a safety rope. As long as Hunter kept moving above, Becky had to keep up. After a shaky stretch of climbing, the two were blocked by a pair of massive satellite dishes. Luckily, Hunter was agile and managed to slip through even the trickiest spots. Once she found her footing, she grabbed a firm hold on Becky. Becky wasn't nearly as nimble, fear had her stiff, but thankfully, she was slim enough to barely squeeze through the gap. With the path ahead finally clear, Hunter started cracking jokes.
Hey! Is this ladder? Stop, you dick! Hunter!
As a seasoned climber, the more dangerous it got, the more pumped Hunter felt. What she didn't realize was that when she'd shaken that ladder earlier, an already loose bolt had just popped right out.
What was that? Come on!
The trip from the platform to the top should have only taken 10 minutes, but Becky was so terrified the whole way up, she dragged it out into a full half hour. By the time she finally made it to the top, she was completely spent. Hunter, who'd reached the summit first, reached out a hand to pull her up. Then Becky's foot slipped, she nearly lost her balance and fell.
Hey, trust me.
And with Hunter's help, finally hauled herself onto the top of the tower. She slowly stood up and looked down. It felt like the entire world was beneath her feet. The two pulled out their phones for a quick selfie, but a thrill seeker like Hunter wasn't satisfied with that. She unhooked her safety harness and dangled from the tower one-handed, 600 meters in the air. For her, extreme stunts were as easy as drinking water. But once they finished their little victory moment and got ready to head back down, they realized something terrifying. Getting off that platform less than a meter wide was going to be harder than getting up there. To keep Becky safe, Hunter held onto her with one hand and let her go down first. Only after Becky was fully back on the ladder did Hunter slowly let go. Becky figured if she just took it slow and steady, this whole adventure would end without a hitch. But what she never saw coming was disaster striking just a few steps in. In that critical moment, thank God Hunter reacted fast. She instantly looped the other end of the safety rope around the tower's spire, jammed her feet against a support beam, and hauled Becky up with everything she had. Becky barely managed to steady herself and started inching her way back up, but the platform was so cramped, Hunter couldn't get any solid footing. The next second, her right foot slipped, and Becky, who just barely climbed back up, fell again. Lucky for them, Hunter reacted in time and braced hard with her foot, just barely avoiding a tragedy. That close call shook them both to the core. After that, Hunter pulled the rope much more carefully, and Becky didn't dare make any sudden moves. She just inched her way up, bit by bit. Before long, she finally grabbed onto that broken ladder, only about a meter of it left, and gave it everything she had. With Hunter's help, she finally made it back to the top.
Did I really just happen?
What they couldn't possibly know was this would be the last time they'd ever laugh like that. Once the rush wore off, they had to face a harsh truth. The ladder leading down was completely broken. How were they supposed to get back to the ground 600 meters below? And worse, when Becky had slipped earlier, the backpack with all their food and water had fallen onto the satellite dish below. At this point, all Becky could do was try to call for help. But 600 meters up in the air, her phone had zero signal. If they couldn't reach the outside world, there was only one ending waiting for them, being trapped up here until they died. Once she calmed down, Hunter suddenly had an idea.
Holy shit.
Hold on, Becky. Maybe it was just up here because of some, interference with the broadcast antenna. We can try to fish for coverage.
Yeah.
I just need something to secure this with.
She typed out an SOS text, hit send, then tied her phone to the safety rope and slowly lowered it down. As soon as the phone hit a zone with signal, they'd hear the message send tone. To get the phone even lower, Hunter climbed onto the broken ladder, dangling her whole body in midair, stretching the phone down as far as she could. But even then, the message still wouldn't go through. Hunter had no choice but to give up.
I don't hear anything, nothing.
Okay, you need to come back up.
Shit.
Just when she was about to lose hope, Becky suddenly had a flash of inspiration. If there was signal on the ground, why not just drop the phone straight down? As long as it didn't break, the SOS still had a shot at going through. Hunter thought it could work. She took off one of her shoes, stuffed the phone inside, then took off her bra and used it as padding. Once she made sure the phone wouldn't bounce around, she chucked the shoe right off the tower. Now, all they could do was wait. But after waiting for hours, there was still no sign of anything happening below. Hunter grabbed her binoculars to check, and was thrilled to see someone had shown up at the base of the tower, but from 600 meters up. No matter how loud they screamed, the guy below couldn't hear a thing. Instead, it was the dog he'd brought along that found the smashed up phone first. But hey, it was just a dog. There was nothing it could do. Becky immediately took off a shoe and hurled it down. The shoe hit the ground with a dull thud, but didn't catch the man's attention. Just as he was about to walk off, Becky hurriedly pulled off her other shoe and threw it as far as she could with everything she had. This time, the shoe slammed hard against an iron frame with a loud crash, finally getting the man's attention. He picked up the shoe that had appeared out of nowhere, stood up confused, and looked around but somehow never thought to look up. He tossed the shoe aside in disgust and walked off, completely unaware that 600 meters above him, on top of that signal tower, Becky and Hunter were trapped. Watching the man walk farther and farther away, Becky quickly grabbed the flare gun, ready to fire, but Hunter stopped her.
Wait, no, do not fire the flare, he's not looking.
This might be our only chance.
No, he's not looking. He's setting up a grill or some shit.
Okay.
And we'll fire the flare when the sun goes down in like an hour. We've only got one shot at this.
So they kept waiting. Once night finally fell, they couldn't hold back any longer. They fired the flare straight into the night sky. The orange flame lit up the darkness instantly and quickly caught the man's eye. He grabbed his binoculars and finally spotted the two trapped at the top of the tower. Becky and Hunter went wild with excitement, waving frantically and practically dancing on the platform. The man and his buddy quickly fired up the RV and drove toward the signal tower. As the RV got closer, the two were so overwhelmed they could barely speak. But what happened next was beyond anything they could have imagined. The man grabbed a crowbar, but instead of opening the gate to the tower, he smashed the windows of their car, jumped inside, and drove off with it. Becky and Hunter sank into an even deeper despair. They stood helplessly at the top of the tower, still hoping the man might grow a conscience and at least make a call for help. But by the next day, no rescue had come. They couldn't keep going like this. To save themselves, Hunter lowered the safety rope and decided to take a desperate gamble she'd go down and grab that backpack with the food and water. Becky tried hard to stop her, but Hunter wasn't backing down. The rope quickly hit its full length, but Hunter was still a fair distance from the backpack. She twisted her body sideways, stretching as far as she could, but still came up just short. Becky stood up top, watching her friend with worry in her eyes. If they couldn't get those supplies, the two of them were as good as dead up there. In a moment of desperation, Hunter did something insane.
Hunter! I think I can swing to it. Hunter, no. Hunter, come back up. Hunter, no! Hunter!
When Hunter finally landed safely on the satellite dish, Becky's heart, which had been in her throat the whole time, finally settled a bit. But once Hunter steadied herself and looked down, she froze in shock. The ladder below them was completely gone. Now, their situation was even more hopeless. There was no time to dwell on it. Hunter immediately grabbed the water from the backpack and chugged a few big gulps. Becky watched from above, eyes full of longing. Once she'd recovered a bit of strength, Hunter started trying to climb back up. But no matter how hard she tried, she just couldn't reach the rope. With no other option, she had to try a different approach. She pulled a selfie stick out of the backpack and hung the bag from it, hoping to use the stick to hook the backpack onto the rope. To get closer, she even stood up on the bent metal pipe, stretching the selfie stick out to reach that lifeline of a rope. After several failed tries, just as her energy was running out, she finally caught the right moment and managed to hook the backpack onto the rope.
You did it! Okay.
But the next part was the most critical. She locked her eyes on the backpack, slowly crouched down, and the next second she leapt. Becky immediately grabbed the rope tightly and pulled as hard as she could. But she wasn't as strong as Hunter, so pulling her up was extremely difficult. Even so, Hunter was slowly pulled back toward the broken ladder. But just as she was about to grab the ladder, the unexpected happened.
Okay.
Becky was so terrified by what she saw, she froze in place, barely able to breathe. It took her a long moment before she dared look down. Lucky for them, Hunter hadn't fallen. After that close call, they were way more cautious this time. Before long, Hunter made it back onto the platform.
I thought you died there. I'm not going anywhere, Babs. You scared me.
Seeing Hunter was okay, Becky quickly dug out the water bottle from the backpack and chugged several big gulps. Now came the most important part, calling for help. Becky wrote out an SOS message, pulled the drone out of the backpack, and flew it toward the motel. But it hadn't gone far before the screen flashed a low battery warning. She had to bring the drone back fast. As it flew in close, Becky reached out and snatched it out of the air. But here was the killer. The spare battery for the drone had been left back at the motel. All they had in the bag was the charger. In that moment, Becky was so helpless she nearly broke down crying. Hunter gently comforted her, telling her to stay calm, they'd find a way through this. Night fell quickly. Watching the warning light on top of the tower flash on and off, Hunter suddenly came up with an idea. The morning sun rose again. They'd been trapped for 48 hours now. Becky took a big swig of water, then started climbing up toward the warning light. Even though it was only 10 meters, it felt like 1,000. The wind up there was brutal, whipping into her eyes. Halfway up, she was ready to give up. Hunter kept cheering her on from below. Her sheer will to survive pushed her higher, and she finally made it to the top.
Yes, you did it, Sherry!
Becky took off her jacket, used it to grab the burning hot bulb, and unscrewed it. The leftover power in the socket that was their ticket out. Becky pulled out the charger and plugged it into the socket. When she realized the socket actually still had power running through it, she was over the moon. If they could just charge the drone, they still had a shot at calling for help. But Becky quickly realized if she wanted the drone to keep charging, she'd have to stay perched up there at the very top. That was going to push her body to its absolute limit. Before long, Becky was barely hanging on. Her body started shaking uncontrollably. Just as the drone finally hit a full charge, a vulture suddenly came swooping at her. Becky quickly scrambled back down to the platform. But there was no time to catch her breath. She immediately launched the drone and sent it flying toward the motel. Just as it was about to reach the motel entrance, that's when disaster struck.
It's gonna work.
When she saw what happened, despair washed over Becky's face. But the driver who got out to check on his car never even noticed the smashed-up drone. Once he got back in and drove off, Becky and Hunter had completely lost their last shot at being rescued. Now, they had no tools left to call for help. All that seemed to be waiting for them was death. By this point, Becky was severely dehydrated. Just as she turned to Hunter in despair, she suddenly noticed something. Hunter's face was still covered in dried blood. Becky was hit like a thunderbolt. In that instant, she remembered the painful truth she'd been refusing to face all along. The truth was, when Hunter had fallen earlier, she'd died on impact. The shock had been too much for Becky's mind to handle. All those moments of Hunter talking to her, encouraging her to survive, they were all just hallucinations. Hunter wasn't there. The only thing Becky had actually pulled up was the backpack. It was only now that she finally understood. On this 600-meter-tall signal tower, she had been completely alone the whole time. The brutal reality crushed Becky's spirit. She had no strength left to face the coming storm. She collapsed onto the platform and passed out cold. Just like that, another day went by. Becky was slumped weakly against the edge of the platform. The wound on her thigh had started to reek. The smell of blood quickly drew in a starving vulture. Just as it tried to peck at her, Becky shot her hand out and grabbed it by the neck. The vulture's claws tore into her, making her scream in pain. But Becky gritted her teeth and, like a woman possessed, slammed it against the platform over and over again. After what felt like forever, the vulture finally went still. Becky was breathing hard, and her eyes had turned cold and fierce. In that moment, only one thought was running through her mind: no matter what it took, she was going to survive. After regaining some strength, Becky unclipped her safety rope, climbed back onto the broken ladder, and tied the rope tight around a crossbar. Once she'd made sure it was secure, she started rappelling down fast. This time, her movements were sharp and decisive. No more hesitation, no more fear. The rope quickly ran out. She unclipped, gathered her courage, and jumped onto the satellite dish. She'd made it to Hunter. Looking down at Hunter's stiff body, Becky's emotions hit her all at once. Knowing what she had to do next, She couldn't hold back the tears, but Becky pulled herself together. She took out her phone, typed up the SOS message, slipped off Hunter's shoe, stuffed the phone inside, and tied the laces tight. Then she apologized to Hunter one more time. She shoved the shoe deep into the open wound on Hunter's stomach. Then, with everything she had, Becky pushed Hunter's body off the tower. Watching Hunter's body slowly fall away, all Becky felt was hollow emptiness. But just then, the metal frame beneath her feet suddenly gave way. Her body lurched, and she nearly slipped right off the tower. Terrified, she scrambled backward, but there was nowhere left to go. In the end, all she could do was kneel there on that violently shaking metal frame, waiting hopelessly for fate to deliver its verdict.